Look at the rent number on your lease. Somebody chose it, not you. In November of 2025, the Justice Department settled with the company most people blame, RealPage, the rent algorithm. 31,700 landlords, taking its daily price recommendations, following them 90% of the time. The DOJ's antitrust chief put it in one sentence. RealPage was replacing competition with coordination, and renters paid the price. And then RealPage paid no damages, admitted no wrongdoing. Everyone treated that as the end of the story. 7 months later, a gym in Denver sued a different company, one that is 40 years old, one that sits in the S&P 500, one that has never sold a rent algorithm and says so in writing to the Securities and Exchange Commission. You have almost certainly never typed its name into anything. By the end of this, you will understand why the algorithm was never the point, and why the number on your lease may have been set long before any software touched it. In 1986, a senior economics major named Andrew Florence is sitting in a dorm room at Princeton with an early personal computer. The commercial property market is about to crash, and it is running on paper. Handwritten lease comps, printed brochures, rumors traded between brokers over lunch. Florence sees the obvious thing. Somebody should write all of it down. That's it. That's the company. He calls it CoStar. 12 years later, it goes public and raises $22.5 million. Today, it does $3.25 billion in annual revenue. 59 straight quarters of double-digit growth. Florence is still the CEO, 40 years in the chair. His pay last year was $37 million. But none of that is the interesting part. The interesting part is how he wrote it all down. Read CoStar's own filings with the SEC and you find something that does not sound like a software company at all. A fleet of custom hybrid cars, each one carrying a computer and a GPS tracking software, a high-resolution camera, and a handheld laser to physically measure buildings and pin them to a map. Custom trucks with pneumatic masts that raise a camera 25 feet in the air so nothing blocks the shot. A company-owned airplane flying low with a cinema camera bolted to its underside, and a fleet of drones. Here is what a single inspection involves, in their words. Photograph the building, measure it, geocode it, capture the for lease sign, count the parking spaces, assess the condition, gather the tenants, then walk the halls, suite by suite, and write down who is inside. In 2015, CoStar's team of 1,600 researchers made 12 million phone calls. They drove more than 2 million miles. They took nearly 1 million photographs of buildings in 1 year. 2 million miles is 80 laps around the planet. In a Honda, taking pictures of strip malls. The plane covered 75 markets. Dallas alone took 40 hours of flight time. Nobody talks about this. Every video about American rent is a video about software. This is not software. This is an army. Today, CoStar tracks 26 million apartment units and takes in over 115 million rental updates every month. And that army built something no regulator anticipated. Not a program, a record. In February 2022, 29 current and former CoStar employees spoke to Business Insider. They described a company that had turned its instrument on itself. According to that reporting, the IT department was ordered to place unannounced video calls to people working from home. The stated reason was to test the network. The actual purpose, the employees said, was to record whether they picked up, whether they turned the camera on, where they were sitting, and what they were wearing. 3 missed calls went in a file. One researcher reportedly got in trouble for coming back 2 minutes late from a 15-minute break. That year, by one employee's count, roughly 37% of the workforce left. More than 1,500 people. CoStar's response was not a denial, it was a statement. They had high standards, and in their words, they would not apologize for them, nor compromise them to accommodate a vocal few. 2 years later, the company that nobody has heard of spent an estimated $35 million on 4 commercials during a single Super Bowl. Not for CoStar, for Homes.com and Apartments.com, the consumer-facing masks on the same database. You have seen the advertising. You were never supposed to see the company. In 2012, CoStar moved to buy LoopNet, its biggest rival in listings. The Federal Trade Commission let the deal through, but attached conditions. One of them was this. LoopNet held a stake in a small Missouri data company that competed with CoStar directly. The FTC ordered that stake sold, so the competitor would stay independent. It went to a British publishing group for about $4 million. The regulator was protecting a rival on purpose. 4 years later, in December 2016, CoStar sued that rival for copyright infringement. Its offshore contractors, CoStar said, had been harvesting images from CoStar's databases. Xceligent countersued, alleging CoStar was running a monopoly. It never got to argue it. In December 2017, 12 months into the fight, Xceligent filed for Chapter 7 liquidation. Its owner had already written the company off, blaming a failed New York expansion and customers who would not renew. Management recommended shutting it down. The website went dark. Hundreds of people lost their jobs. In October 2019, Xceligent's bankruptcy trustee agreed to a $500 million judgment against the dead company. There was nothing to collect. Its insurers paid $10.75 million. Florence said afterward that the case had cost CoStar more than double what it recovered. Read that again. He spent more than $20 million to win against a company that no longer existed, and he called it worth it. CoStar has filed more than 30 copyright cases since it was founded. In 2020, Florence told a reporter on the record, "When we go to court, we win." He was right for a very long time. Then a startup called Crexi refused to die. CoStar sued it in 2020. The same play, copyright. Crexi countersued and made a different argument. It said CoStar uses contracts and technical barriers to stop brokers from putting their listings anywhere else. That, the moat, is the product. A lower court threw it out. In June 2025, the Ninth Circuit brought the antitrust claims back to life. The panel held that a monopolist wielding its power to exclude competitors violates the Sherman Act. CoStar took it to the Supreme Court. In March 2026, the Supreme Court declined to hear it. For the first time in 40 years, the discovery process is pointed inward, at CoStar, and that is when the gym walked in. June 12th, 2026. Northern District of Illinois. A company called Fit Factory DC files a proposed class action, not a tenants union. A business alleging it overpaid on a commercial lease in Denver. The lawsuit names CoStar as the hub, and the spokes are the 5 largest commercial brokerages in the country. The allegation is this: those brokers fed current, non-public, deal-specific lease terms into CoStar, and CoStar handed the picture back to all of them. The complaint's own phrase is the one to remember. Through mutual monitoring enabled by CoStar, the brokers detected deviations from prevailing market rents, replacing independent pricing decisions with coordinated conduct. Read that again slowly. Nobody has to agree to fix a price. They only have to be able to see each other. Now go back to CoStar's annual report. The line is right there, filed with the SEC, unambiguous. That is true. And it may be the most important sentence in this entire story, because RealPage was a machine that told landlords what to charge, and a machine can be regulated. You can order it to use older data, you can force it to stop. A record cannot be unseen. CoStar's general counsel calls the suit frivolous. He says they look forward to a swift and complete victory in court. Nothing has been proven. A similar case was filed in Virginia in April. A hotel pricing case against CoStar was dismissed in September 2025. These are allegations. They may fail. CoStar has beaten almost everyone. But the question the court now has to answer is one nobody thought to ask while everyone was staring at the algorithm. For 40 years, a company sent cars down every street in America, measuring buildings and counting parking spaces and writing down who was inside. Nobody stopped them because it was not a secret. It was published in filings, in press releases, in job postings for field research photographers. The regulators watched the software. The number on your lease was not chosen by an algorithm. It was chosen by a person who could see exactly what every person like them was charging on a screen in near real time. Because a very patient company spent 4 decades driving 2 million miles a year so that they could. That is the story. Whether it is also a crime is now, finally, a question for a jury. If you want to keep finding the companies that are hiding in plain sight in the filings and the paperwork, in the things nobody bothers to read, subscribe. That is the entire job of this channel, because the next one owns something you use every single day, and it does not have a website.